Love between humans is just not easy, and without great examples or education about emotions, communication, sex, and what keeps love alive, it's too easy to be disheartened, settle, or give up on what you want most. I believe you can have the love and intimacy you want. And having coached thousands of people on their love lives for over 20 years, I know what love can be for you. So I'm bringing you people who share vulnerably about their dating and relationship struggles and how they learn to create the most connected, fulfilling, and exciting love and sex of their lives, so you can have it too. If you haven't yet taken the quiz to see what keeps you from having the best love and sex of your life, go to shanajamescoaching.com/quiz. You'll get a personalized report of your strengths and challenges in the 5 crucial areas that lead to your most fulfilling and exciting love and sex life. Go to shanajamescoaching.com/quiz to find out. Hello, and welcome to this episode of Practicing Love. Have the best love and sex of your life after 40. I'm excited to be here today to have a conversation with someone who I admire and respect. And we'll see where it goes. But I'm excited to bring in the realms of spiritual intelligence and emotional intelligence and attachment and all the things, all the humanity and spirituality that love can be. So thank you, Yossi Amram, for joining us today. Good to have you here.
Thank you. I'm excited. I forget what you said about me already, but I was like, oh, okay. Thank you.
Well, Yossi is a PhD, a clinical psychologist. He researches spiritual intelligence. He's a coach. I mean, you're so many things. And what I always appreciate about our conversations is we have a shared spiritual practice, probably even more than one, but the Diamond Approach, in which we both, have spent many years, decades inquiring and just getting very curious about the human experience, the spiritual experience. So I always love having conversations with you.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, we're both interested in depth and love and spirituality and sexuality. And I think sexuality and spirituality are highly related. We could talk about that, but
yeah, great. Also, a big part of this podcast purpose is to show that even with decades of interest and study and practice, right, we are still practicing. So thank you for being willing to be vulnerable.
Okay, you mean I still have my issues? Jeez, I thought you're presenting me as the expert here that graduated from human life.
Exactly. Would you be open to telling us about your current relationship status or, anything that feels notable to you that you want us to know about relationship history so we know, where you are in this moment?
Sure. Wow. So I'm currently single, in search for hopefully will be my life partner. I say my intention is that my next lover will be my last lover.
Love
it. So we'll see. But I was married for 23 years. It worked for quite a while, produced 2 wonderful children. We had 2 great careers, and then we grew apart. And that's been now, 14 years ago. And since then, I've had a number of relationships, but none of them became my my life partner. I think coming out of a monogamous marriage and focused on my career and changing careers from being a tech CEO founder to being a psychologist and studying spiritual intelligence and all these things.
Quite a shift.
It was quite a shift, and but I wanted to explore my sexuality. I did a bunch of stuff kind of in that domain, even experimented with the poly world, till I realized that that's not what I want to do. But for whatever reason, those relationships, and they've ranged from 6 months to a year to a couple of years, haven't worked out. And I'm learning and what some of my patterns, and I can make my confessions.
Get into those. And for people who don't know the poly world, your reference to polyamory, right? Beyond monogamy, some people have monogamish relationships, some people have polyamorous relationships. Sounds like you, through those explorations, you were willing to go explore and you realized that's not the way you want to do it.
Yeah, I'm glad I did it. I mean, I was interested in it for a variety of reasons, but yeah, I've realized that that's not where I want to settle.
Yeah, great. Okay. So what would you say is one of we could go for the biggest, or we could go for just, one that feels noteworthy, right? A struggle that you've had in relationship, and how has that showed up?
Well, let's see.
Sigh.
It feels a little vulnerable, but we're here to be vulnerable and authentic. So, and there's a couple of things, and they're somewhat related, and it depends how deep we want to go with it. But I think, I already mentioned sexuality and spirituality. I mean, sexuality has been important for me in my life, and part of the reason I went down the poly world is because I was interested in exploring my sexuality and expressing it in a variety of ways. But one of the things I have struggled with as I look through the last, 14 years, so to speak, since my marriage ended, is that I got into relationships based on passion and strong sexual chemistry. And because I wanted to explore my sexuality, I got into sexual relationships probably prematurely or too quickly. And, I get attached once I become sexual with someone. I think we have all the hormones of oxytocin and dissolves our ego, and you feel wonderful and blissful and lots of love, and that creates attachment. I get attached, and if the sex is strong and powerful and passionate, but I would do that often before qualifying that the person is the right match in terms of a long relationship. So then I would kind of find myself in the wrong relationship because sex.
The chemistry was great.
Because the chemistry and the sex was great.
Yeah.
And that relates to something deeper than that. I mean, the sex was part of it, and the lust and so on, and the hormones and that drive, which is strong and powerful. But, when I say those relationships didn't work, what I found is also the other aspect was it tended to be with younger women that were very attractive, but didn't necessarily have their life together as much financially and professionally and so on. Yeah. And I ended up being sort of the caretaker more emotionally, financially, and sort of it was the unspoken deal was that I got great
the caretaker.
I got the great hot sex with a sexy, beautiful woman that was younger, but there wasn't the emotional maturity, and there wasn't the resources where I felt held and supported emotionally. And so there was sort of, in a way, it also satisfied the narcissistic aspect of myself, which gives me a sense of identity of being the caretaker and looked up to and being needed. And so there's a bit of a codependent pattern in that, which goes deeper into my history with my mom. And I was kind of, her confidant and so on, which is what got me to be a therapist and be supportive. So it's a whole pattern of personality that I've been working to unwind and so
there's so much in there, and I think there's so much in there, and I'm thinking about the tendencies to choose partners based on chemistry, or times in our lives choosing younger whether it's, a person of any gender. I know people who've chosen younger, had more of that vitality, and there's more of that spark, and yet missing the maturity, or right, the emotional maturity, the spiritual maturity. And to me, I've heard this so much where people are like, well, I don't want to be with someone I'm not attracted to. And yet I know, as I was starting to date before my current partner, I had to do this sort of almost like a mental gymnastic shift where I was like, okay, I'm not going to go after immediate chemistry. I'm going to choose, I'm going to expand this to look for a partnership, and what would a partner be like? Not giving up on attraction, but also, okay, what is really most important to me? So I have compassion for that, the draw of chemistry. I mean, chemistry is so strong. I can understand why certain spiritual traditions say no sex before marriage, or right. While I do believe it's extreme, I think it also helps us focus on some of the things that we miss out on when we are focusing on chemistry.
Yeah, and just the erotic energy, attraction. And yeah, as you say, it doesn't need to go that extreme. But yeah, but it's sort of like, does our heart follow our genitals, or can our genitals follow our heart? And I have experienced, though, that people that I found moderately attractive, as I got to know them and connect emotionally, the attraction grows.
Yeah.
And so, but yeah, there has to be some kind of balance, and there has to be some level of attraction. But I do believe that that as we develop the depth and the bond and the emotional connection, the intimacy and the desire and the attraction grows. And
yes. Yeah, I agree. And I think it's what I wonder, I'm curious about your perspective, is like, do we have to relearn that, or do we have to kind of unwind some of our, like you said, these narcissistic tendencies, or the parts of us that want to be met in certain ways to prove that we're good enough or attractive enough, right? Like, how do you see that? How are you working with those parts? What are you practicing, I guess, is the question there.
Well, it's both for me and my clients. I mean, so when you inquire, okay, what's so compelling about sex, right? And when you ask people, okay, what is it you like about sex? Well, the first response is, well, of course, it's the greatest pleasure, and whatever. But when you really dig in, you find out that, it's a way to feel desired. It's a way to feel loved, but it's a way to feel my power. It's a way to feel my aliveness. It's a way to, following an orgasm or whatever, to feel bliss and rest and union. And you get to a state where the ego dissolves, and there's kind of like an 8-limb entity that's not just me with my 2 hands and 2 arms. It's like all of a sudden there's
union,
there's a merging, and it's transcending our ego. So I think a lot of the things that we don't really unpack and think about this is what we talked about, and this is why I think there's a connection between sexuality and spirituality. Even when you think about spirituality, what is the root word? Is spirit, is the animating breath of life. And sex is the way we come into life. That's what gives birth to life itself. So, so spiritual, when you talk to people about their deepest spiritual experience, and you talk to them about their deepest sexual experience, there's actually a lot of commonality in it. So, yeah, so I'm not sure I'm answering exactly.
I think this is fascinating, right? It's like, okay, so how do we be spiritual beings, sexual beings, and conscious beings in a way, right? I think love for me has always been a doorway into, like you said, okay, how do I know myself beyond my ego, beyond my personality, and love tends to highlight and sex tends to highlight or push to the surface, right? Here are the parts that you're going to struggle with if you actually want to be free. So I'm really appreciating this conversation and where sexuality and spirituality intermingle, and where I think a lot of people don't do that deep inquiry you're talking about is, what is so compelling about sex? What is so compelling about these moments? Some people would equate them with transcendence, and I think other people don't have that language.
Yeah, well, I mean, if you think about it, a couple of things. One is the moment of orgasm. Part of what we like is the pleasure is so intense that invariably it dissolves and blows our mind. We say mind-blowing sex, right? So our mind is blown, our pattern, our thinking mind stops, and the ego dissolves. So that's part of the intensity of the relationship. And then we talked about part of love. You say, well, what is in love? When we love someone, our boundaries dissolve and we care about them. And then when we get married, if we get to that or whatever, or even if we're not, but we're in partnership, we form a we that transcend our ego. So we move from just I, there's a we. And, in a loving relationship, there's I, there's you. There's me, there's you, and then there's the we. And then ultimately, if we're spiritual, there's the one. And it's a dance between all of that. And so we love to merge, and then we also love to emerge into our unique autonomy. So we like the unity, and then we like the autonomy. And we need both in life, I think. So, we might make love to our partner, and we go into a moment of merging, and it's blissful, and we're resting. But after a while, it's like, we want to go back to our individuality. I'm thirsty, I got to go to the bathroom, etc. So, but that dance, I think, in sex also happens in our spiritual path with the one, whether it's true nature or God or Buddha nature, whatever you want to talk about. Language, it's a dance between merging into something bigger than ourselves, whether it's the unity of us as a couple, or it's the unity of me with God, or with true nature, or with Buddha nature, with the one, however way we language it. But we don't stay in that oneness forever. We got to come back and remember, I'm a distinct entity, and I got to brush my teeth. And
a kid, or
yeah.
Yes. Okay, so how are you navigating the attraction that's been there, or I don't know if you called it a compulsion, maybe you were talking about how compelling it is, right? The chemistry is compelling.
Uh-huh.
How are you navigating that in yourself as you recognize, I might be drawn toward this type of woman or this type of experience. Now I'm seeing that isn't actually what is fulfilling for me. So then what?
Well, I'm not trying to say, I find her good chemistry, I'm not going to go there. No, I'm just going to slow it down. I'm slowing it down and qualifying. And this is going to sound arrogant, but I've had women that kind of will throw themselves sexually at me, and I'm like, no, I'm not going to go there. Let's talk about what this means and what are we looking for. And because I'm not interested in that just one night hot stand sex or whatever, I want to make sure that, because once I'm going to get sexual with you, it's going to involve a commitment and time and energy. So let's talk about what kind of relationship
we want, and
what are we looking for beyond. Are we aligned in terms of what a relationship is? And then that's where it goes into, for me, relationship is a spiritual practice. Ultimately, I'm looking for a life partner. Is that something you are interested? Or some people are, no, I just want to date, and my life is full and this and that. And I've got 3 young kids, and I don't have a room for relationship. It's just somebody that I want to meet every other weekend and connect and have great sex and etc. Well, that sounds wonderful, and maybe few
But it's
years
not
ago.
exactly what you want at this
It's
moment.
not what I'm looking for. So I care for you. I even, I love you, but I'm not gonna
I'm not going
go
to create a
there.
partnership with you. I'm not going to go there. Right. I just had another thought about capacity, right? Well, two thoughts. One, someone might say, I also want a relationship as a spiritual practice. And then there's the question of, do we mean the same thing by what we're saying, right? Or
Exactly.
is there enough overlap that we would actually be
Uh-huh.
available to each other for that? And then I wonder what you think about capacity also, because someone might say, I want something. And then I think it takes time to show whether we have the capacity for what we say we want.
Well, we all have the capacity to grow and heal. The question is, where are we? And so, yeah, I mean, where are they in terms of their work? Do they have an ongoing spiritual practice? I mean, a lot of people say, well, I'm spiritual, whatever, but that means for them they go to a yoga class and I'm a spiritual person. Well, that's fine. That's great. But
that's not what you mean by spiritual.
yeah, well, I'm talking about someone who's more serious practitioner that have some kind of ongoing practice like meditation or prayer that helps them regulate their nervous system and they're in therapy or they've done some therapy or there's a holding environment that, that supports. Yeah, because these things are going to get kicked up. And part of the beauty and power of a relationship is that our wounds will come up, our patterns will come up. And if our intention is to use the relationship as the holding environment and the support for that healing and that growth spiritually, we need to be able to take what gets kicked up and go to our therapist, go to our spiritual teacher. Maybe we do couples counseling together. But work on our attachment wounds and all those other things. Yeah. So there has to be a shared intention, a shared sense of purpose and values. Like it also starts with, why are we looking for a partnership? We have the basic core human needs of safety and financial security and companionship. We're social animals and so on. And we have our sexual needs we talked about. But some of us have higher aspirations. We have a purpose for our lives, whatever our calling is in the world. And ideally, the relationship supports each of our individual purposes. So do I feel identified and resonant with your purpose, that as your partner, I want to support you and I'll spend lots of time listening to your issues that come up around your work, because I feel the work you're doing in the world,
because it matters to you.
It matters to me to see, whatever you're doing. So I want to support you, and then you resonate with my purpose and you want to support me. So now the relationship supports our mutual purpose and it has its own purpose.
Yes.
And then we have a shared set of principles and values that we're saying we're going to practice compassion and forgiveness and, whatever else, sacred sexuality. So we're aligned with our values, with our purpose, and we know what we're aiming at.
Yes, I love this. Okay, so if we go back to the vulnerable part, right, around your personal life, and I know one of the things you said you're doing is you're now slowing down. Would you say that you are drawn to different women, or do you see chemistry in a different light, right? Like, I guess I'm just curious, is it only slowing down, or are there other things you're doing to try to find a more aligned life partner?
Well, it's slowing down. It's also paying attention. So I still may feel the sexual attraction to someone. I go to this dance community here, and I may notice some women that are attractive, that have a lot of sexual energy. But to me, it's like in the past, I would dive right in. And now I'm like, okay, I just a little more cautious, and I'm looking around.
Yourself, it sounds.
I'm checking myself, and I'm seeing, is this just the way this person is? They highly sexualize, and are they bringing on that energy elsewhere and everywhere? I'm like, okay, well, let's just see what's going on here.
Yeah.
And
It's so interesting too when I'm working with people who are single and looking for a relationship and dating, I often, if they're someone who, gets highly attached, right, then I often suggest what you've done, which is, okay, slow it down and not necessarily dive in until you have that knowing of alignment. Other times I have suggested to people, okay, enjoy yourself, right? Have the fun you want to have, the sex you want to have, and keep in mind that you really don't know someone for, let's say, at least 6 months, maybe a year, a couple years, right? You've got to go through some challenges, I think, or, have some conflicts, have some life experience to see who is this person and how do they show up in all of these different ways. And, are they putting on a facade that's okay, their best self? Or is this truly who they are in the depth of them?
yeah, and as you said, it takes time. But also, just like you said, it's totally fine if someone says, "Oh, I just want to have some fun," and for a while I was in that mode, and so I wasn't completely blind to this. Sometimes I knew, well, I'm jumping in, and I was like, well, I might as well, rather than spending 6 months dating and whatever, I'm just gonna spend those 6 months having great sex and then finding out, and so I don't regret. Having gone through those, each of those were beautiful in their own way, even if they ended up not being my life partner.
Mm-hmm.
But, my focus has shifted as I've gotten a little older, and my work is very demanding or calling me to put a lot of energy. So my priorities have shifted. And, it also could be just because of getting older. Sex has not been as strong, now as it was 15 years ago, as a motivator or driver.
Well, and how beautiful to stay current with yourself and know what is truly driving you, right? Because there are people who also have a story or a knowing of themselves in the past, who they were, especially, right? Someone who becomes single later in life, I've found, and they go out and start to date, and then it's like something just doesn't feel right. And then we realize, oh, you're dating based on who you were back then versus who are you actually now and what matters to you now. And then there can be a whole new set of shame or embarrassment or things that start to arise about, well, this is who I am now, but I was supposed to be who I was then. And that's part of the reason why I love the opportunity that happens in midlife for people who start over, because I think oftentimes relationship, I mean, hopefully it's not, but sometimes being in a relationship can keep certain parts of us from growing or knowing who we are, because it can feel threatening to the relationship.
Yeah, and just to build on what you're saying, another aspect of it has to do with identity and grief. So, is like, for example, I had a part of my identity was that I was a highly sexual being and I was a good lover and whatever. But as sex became less of an issue, I was like, all of a sudden I was like, what's going on? I mean,
Who am I?
What happened to my identity and what happened to my libido or whatever? And so accepting that change and then being okay with it. But it's letting go to a piece of identity that I took essential to me, and then realizing that's not the essence of who I am. Mm-hmm. And that involves a certain level of grief and transformation, redefining who I am, what matters to me, what I'm passionate about, what my deepest and highest values today versus what they were 10 years ago. Yeah. And it requires an ongoing updating. And it can feel like a loss, but it's also a gain of new. So as Jung said, you don't want to live the afternoon like you lived the morning of your life. Mm-hmm. And what was meaningful and important in high school is not what was meaningful and important in grad school, and what's not meaningful and important, in our 30s and in our 40s and 50s. So it keeps shifting, and that's just part of the evolution and richness of life.
Yeah.
But some of us, hold on, this was what was exciting and it's no longer exciting. So maybe what I need is to just up the dose, so to speak. If I do more,
faster cars, hotter,
whatever it is, more, younger. And it happens in business, right? Some people are like, okay, well, I built this side business, etc. I'm not so excited anymore. Well, maybe if I focus on, more, I made my million. Well, now it's not just one more million. I got to go for 10 million or 100 million or whatever. But maybe it's just money is not so important. I got my million. That's enough for whatever. And what I'm really caring about now is my spiritual growth or my healing or whatever. But if money was what defined our purpose and gave direction and aliveness to us, and all of a sudden it's not so meaningful, then can we say, okay, well, maybe some other value is now becoming my priority, my focus, my purpose, what gives meaning and direction to my life.
Yeah. I think it's such a beautiful inquiry and very vulnerable, right? Because when we do identify with something, then like you said, it feels like a loss. It feels like can feel like a death even of, kind of emptiness, or as we talk about in our practice, right? That a hole, a place where we feel deflated or defeated or hopeless. It's so powerful though, to walk people through those moments and realize this is not the end, right? You're
it's the end of something.
Yes.
It's the end of something, but the beginning of something else. As I think it goes, every end is a beginning, every beginning is an end. So, and it can happen also in parenting, right? I mean, some of us, a core part of our identity, what gives us meaning is to be a parent. And then the kids go to college or whatever, I experience it, all of a sudden it's a loss. It's like, okay. And it can happen in marriages and relationships. A lot of what holds people together and the purpose of the relationship and the marriage was to build the family, to bring children into the world and raise them. And then you wake up in your 40s and they're out. And so then you look at your partner, what's left? Why are we together? What is the purpose of our union now?
Right.
And so, but it can happen individually. My kids are flown out the nest, so my purpose is gone. I got to find another purpose, and the purpose of the relationship has to be redefined. Yeah. If we came together to build a family, raise children, and then they're gone, they don't need us, we have to find some other meaning and purpose for our relationship.
Yes. Well, I love this conversation. I hope that it's useful for people, and I'm definitely getting a lot out of it and feeling inspired by it. Is there any other touch points or any other places you want to speak to personally around, what are you practicing as you're updating your sense of self and what's most important to you and on this journey of love and sex and spirituality?
Well, for me, just kind of sharpening what we talked about before, which was because I had this thing of this caretaking part of me that likes to be generous and helpful to others, etc., which I think is beautiful, and I don't want to completely eliminate that. But on the other side, I feel like at times I didn't have strong enough boundaries or was assertive enough of my own needs. And that's part of what got me into certain patterns early on in the relationship. Mm-hmm. And then all of a sudden later, I was like, wait a sec, I also need to be listened to. And I am a good listener, and I'm a therapist, and I can be a good listener. But if I just practice listening and then you're
not heard,
and I don't feel heard, then after a few months, I'm like starting to bring that up. It doesn't work so well. It's like we get into a pattern. So, how to be generous and giving, but also assertive, which, I'm trying to remind myself is that it's actually kind because it's calling forth and inviting the other person to develop their capacity to listen, and it creates a more authentic relationship, even if it means there might be more friction. But that just what creates the authenticity, and that friction creates a true connection. So part of my practice is to set the boundaries and be more assertive of my needs early on, while also being generous and kind and compassionate and giving.
Yeah.
And this is a fine line to walk. And it's not always being nice, but it's being kind.
That's a good distinction, right?
Kind to be kind to myself and the other, and to assert my needs in a kind way, or to put boundaries in a kind way, rather than, aggressive or disconnected.
That's what I tell people too, right? You can always lovingly set a boundary. You don't have to be aggressive or mean or attacking or shaming or any of that.
Yeah, but that's a high art form, I find.
Exactly, a high art. It is a high art, I will say, for sure. But I think, in my mind, that's what we're practicing for.
Yeah. So it's a practice ground for our own evolution, and the person we're dancing with. And we're both sharpening our skills in the dance.
Exactly.
As we step on each other's toes, we have to be more attuned and be more authentic, feeling how the music is playing through us, and then how it's playing with the other person. So we have to do this thing that we do in the diamond approach, and I work with my clients. It's kind of this 50-50. Like, I can't leave myself, but I don't want to only focus on myself. So I have to, right now, I'm watching you and your body language, but I'm also tracking myself.
Right.
And I see your smile and the sparkle in your eye, and I feel like how it affects me. And so my awareness is divided between me and you, and the space in between, the intersubjective, the we that is created in here. So that's a practice of opening our consciousness. And to me, it's a beautiful practice of connecting with myself and the other. And it's all about connection to myself with you in this moment, but also my awareness is the presence that holds us both, the oneness. So connecting vertically, connecting horizontally, connecting in my depth. And that's an ongoing spiritual practice of presence, of mindfulness, of connection.
Beautiful. Yeah. Yeah. And as you're speaking of this, I'm thinking, okay, right. And all of this happens either side by side or concurrently, however you want to say that, with life and with making the food and paying the bills and taking care of the kids if you have them, and all of these things, and how we really integrate spirituality into our daily lives, and love and, the sexuality into our everyday. I mean, it's like you said, it's no small order to make this happen.
Yeah. And none of us are perfect. So we fall off the horse, we get back on the horse.
Yeah.
And it's how quickly we repair. I think you had Gottman in one of your shows, and he's all about, what
we're not going to fall off the horse, but how quickly do we actually get back on it and repair?
Yeah. And how well are we at the repair? But if you even look at, I tell my client, the guy who walked the wire between the twin towers, they're never in perfect balance. They're always falling onto one side, but they catch themselves. And the difference between me and them is that they can catch themselves before they are down 100 flights and smashed on the pavement. Whereas, I wouldn't.
It's a beautiful metaphor. Yeah.
So, and so if we can catch ourselves before we get into the nasty fights where people say these terrible things that are then so much hard to unwind, but we fall off the horse, and then we get back on track, and we repair, and we have to put our ego aside. Oh, I'm sorry, I made a mistake.
Yes.
And that's where we want to do what's right or become happy versus proving ourselves right, which is coming from ego. So that's where it becomes a spiritual practice.
Yes. Amazing. Thank you so much for having this conversation. And if people want to find more of you, your book, your research, where do they find you?
Well, I have a website called yossiamram.net. So they can go there and they can get the book on Amazon. It's written for leadership, but it's really the same qualities and the exercises are universally applicable.
Yeah.
I do hope to write a future book about spiritually intelligent relationship, which is how to ignite and sustain your passionate, sacred love. We're talking about some of the principles and about to start a research project with couples around that. But yeah, yossiamram.net or awakeningsi.org. One word, awakening, SI for the abbreviation for spiritual intelligence, or the full word, awakeningspiritualintelligence.org. And, I host free monthly events. This next one is this Friday, Valentine's Day, celebrating love. It's going to be about devotional love. And, normally we think about Valentine's Day and devotion just to our partner, but we could have devotional love to love itself, to our nature, to spirit, to our nature as love. And
Beautiful.
So,
Thank you. All right. Until the next time.
Till the next time. Thank you. Thank you so much. Delightful to be here with you.
I'm so glad you joined us for today's episode of Practicing Love. I hope you enjoyed our conversation and gained insight into yourself and your current and past relationships and inspiration for what's possible. If you like what you heard, I'd be so grateful for you to subscribe and write a quick review to help people find us. If you'd like more support in your love life, be sure to get your free copy of my best-selling book, Honest Sex, at shanajamescoaching.com/free. That's shanajamescoaching.com/free. And we'll see you next time.